Hello, my name is Karina Brandão. I'm originally from Brazil, and at the LAB I work as a researcher and curator of the collections of Lepidoptera and Trichoptera. Lepidoptera are the moths and butterflies, the object of my research. Um, I I'm not sure how where this fascination for science started, but I remember I always want to work with genetics. I was always fascinated with genetics, and I remember keeping this article about genetic engineer and where you could choose the eyes of your children, and I was maybe 12 years old. I was first interested in understand the interaction between insects and plants. It's an important field in biology because it's a way to study evolution based on host plant use, to understand the pest control because you understanding the chemicals of the plant that avoid herbivory from insects, so insects eating them, you can understand how to avoid that in applied field, for example. And in the case of butterflies, the caterpillar phase, eating the whole life. In fact, the life of a caterpillar is only eat and eating different host plants, but not all. So they choose exactly where they are going to feed on. And I want to understand that. And I'm from Brazil, one of the places with most species of butterflies in the world. You have more than 3,500 species of butterflies. So it's a lot of open questions to study there. So I thought what would be a really touch to study them because all subjects are very interesting. I believe the main challenge was to be a woman in a field dominated by men, and more recently, to conciliate family and work is not also easy. And I know that for all women in science is the same challenge always. So the woman that come before me, and I try to make things easier for the woman that's coming after me. So at some point, I decided it was also part of my job to be a role model for this young woman. Not just in the, I don't know, mystical way, but to give them support. What kind of support? Invited to come visit me with a child 2 years old. So my name is in all paperwork, and I will be taking care together with this mother of their baby. Things like that. So it's important to have some woman behind. I think you are more comprehensive than men taking care of this young woman. In the last years, I have been working mostly with genetic diversity of butterflies and moths mainly. And the idea is to understand how much genetic variability are present on populations of these species. Why that's important? Because when you talk about biodiversity, it's not just about the number of species, but also the diversity, the genetic diversity. Knowing this, we are able to infer how insects can answer to change in their environment, like climate change. I, or most likely my students, will have to start everything in the field because we work with field populations. Doesn't matter if it's wild butterflies or pest moths. So first in the field, then we bring all the samples to the laboratory to access the DNA information. And after this, we have to analyze this data and find the associations between the molecular data, the genetic information, and the environment where those insects come from. So we spent a lot of time also in front of the computer. Butterflies are model in many important biological functions, both from basic science and applied. So butterflies are model for studies since the beginning of natural history studies as evolutionary model, ecological behavior, about predation of insects, and they are really important bioindicators in the environment. So when you see butterflies, it indicates to you that other insects will be present, that you have a lot of different kinds of plants and trees, or that the water is clean on that place, the air is clean in that place. So they indicate how healthy an environment is. There are also pollinators, important pollinators, and in the practice, they are very important flag species. So you call a flag species that beautiful species that is using to call attention of people, because people like beauty. People use them to tell people how important it is to keep biodiversity, for example, in a place, or talk about nature with kids, for example, or their parents. So they are very good model for this kind of studies as well. And as I mentioned before, they are really a good model to understand pest control in the field, how to avoid that our food is completely eaten by insects. Took me a long time to have a permanent position. So I saw many friends and colleagues that never got this chance. So for me, the main challenge is to get good work conditions, both for developing any kind of research and really have a permanent position. What I have been doing to avoid those problems, I always kept collaborations with researchers around the world. So I never stopped working, but I know many friends who really had to choose, like feed your family or keep doing research. It's funny to think about a curator position because I never thought about that. The possibilities in Brazil are very few. You just have collections, biological collections inside universities. So I always thought about having a position in a university, in a public university. So to have this job that I found out was always my dream job, I had to move to Germany, where you have several different biological collections, and I found out that's an amazing job. I would say always to keep networks with your colleagues, with your supervisors. Work in collaboration is much more fun than work alone. And you save time because everybody give you a little bit of their time to the project, and always resources. And in the end, the result is more sounding than if you have been working alone.